Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate this. Director Lew, I really appreciate you being here today and your testimony, and also the very difficult task you have in putting these budgets together. It's not an easy task. I want to discuss an issue that's very important to me and my state of Louisiana. As you may or may not know, Louisiana is a leader in international trade, and in fact, with China, we rank fourth among the 50 states in exports to China. In the year 2009, we saw a 56% increase in our exports to China in a somewhat down economic year. And as a southern state and a coastal state, one of the problems we have every single year, and we never have really good solutions to this, is the sediment buildup in our shipping channels. It's a significant problem. It requires constant maintenance, and yet, I have the honor of serving a coastal state, Louisiana, a coastal district, and see firsthand the importance of having these dredging operations done in a timely manner. But I want to be really clear. This is a national problem. And back in 1986, Congress was very wise in setting up the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund. This is a fund that was a dedicated ad valorem tax to be used for operation and maintenance dredging in all the federally authorized channels, to maintain the width and the depth. However, over the years, Washington bureaucrats, the budget process have held this process, or held these monies hostage to a budget process, and these critical waterways have been neglected. In fact, if you look at what the Army Corps of Engineers tells us, if you take our 59 largest ports, which are critical for us to meet the President's goal of doubling exports in 5 years, you take those 59 ports, only about 35% of them are operating at the full capacity of width and depth. So, and this backlog of maintenance is growing year by year. Now, the fund, the tax, the ad valorem tax, the harbor maintenance tax, brings in somewhere between $1.3 and $1.6 billion a year. In fact, in fiscal year 10, it was $1.3 billion. But only half of those funds are currently being used by the Army Corps of Engineers for maintenance dredging. The President's fiscal 12 budget proposes only $758 million to be distributed from the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund for operation and maintenance purposes. Now, what is the impact of this? Vessels and companies that are shipping lose millions of dollars each year as they're forced to light load vessels for shipping. They're forced to operate under reduced shipping schedules when high tide is in to make up for the silt that's built up. And these are extra costs to American companies that are trying to compete globally. So if we're going to try to really meet the President's goal of doubling exports over the next 5 years, how do you justify spending only half the fees? These are dedicated fees that were supposed to be used for dredging. Half the fees collected each year, leaving a $5.6 billion surplus in this fund when our nation's exporting channels are becoming less competitive.
Congressman, in the Army Corps program, we've made difficult decisions, difficult trade-offs. In general, funding levels are not as high as they would be if we weren't on a path where we're trying very hard.
But this is a dedicated tax that's supposed to be used. It's paid by these shippers, by this maritime industry, and it's dedicated in law for operation and maintenance dredging. And so why is only half of it being used? Is this a budget gimmick?
Well, I think if you look at the Army Corps program overall, the way the decisions have been made in the Corps budget are to look for the highest value projects and to put funding behind the highest.
But I've talked with the Corps, and they consistently say they need access to that money, and they could actually take care of all these authorized projects to meet the maximum efficiency so that we meet the President's goal and still have some left to put into the fund. This is not an efficient use of funds.
I understand that there are a lot of projects that might well be worthy projects.
These are all worthy projects identified by the Corps that they are underfunding because they can't get access to these funds.
It would nonetheless be additional spending if we were to do the project.
No, it's not. It doesn't add to the deficit because this is money that is already coming in dedicated for these projects. Otherwise, it goes into a surplus fund
When we draw...
CBO scores this as adding nothing to the deficit.
I'll go back and check. In general, when we draw funds down from a trust fund, changes in trust funds are scored.
We're not talking about drawing down from the trust fund. We're just talking about using the incoming annual money. The fund is continuing to grow.
So let me get back to you on that.
Could you get back to me in writing on that? Thank you.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Berkeley is recognized.